The valley that cradles the city of Antigua, Guatemala stands out as one of the most privileged regions in the world in terms of the indisputable quality of its coffee. First established in 1925, Finca Colombia was gradually transformed into a coffee plantation through the initiative of Dr. Oscar Asensio del Valle. For 60 consecutive years, and in spite of all sorts of difficulties, this property has managed to stay in the coffee market, which is currently one of the most demanding worldwide. From its beginnings, Finca Colombia has been a family enterprise. Throughout the generations, it has based its operation on careful, handmade techniques, striving for better quality control and the best supervision. This system ensures a final product that meets the expectations of those who enjoy a cup of extraordinary coffee, the coffee produced at Finca Colombia. Everything starts with the selection of the best coffee seeds found on the plantation. A seed bed, consisting of a wooden box with a special mix of soil and sand, has been prepared in advance. Several seeds are placed by hand in the ground. The holes are filled, and the seed bed is covered with jute sacks to hold the moisture and to prevent animals from digging the seeds out. 45 days after planting, the seedlings start to emerge. When the seedlings have grown 4 leaves, they are transplanted to black polythene bags and moved to the nursery. The nursery is a special place where young coffee plants are carefully raised. The seedlings are placed inside black polythene bags during the rainy season and arranged in spaced rows, allowing for proper nutrients for their optimal development. These young plants grow in the open, under shade, receiving special care for 1 full year. In the next rainy season, they will be moved to their permanent location. Young gravilea trees are simultaneously grown in the nursery. When transplanted to a permanent place, they will provide shade and protection to the coffee plants. After spending 1 entire year in the nursery, under very special care, the seedlings are ready to be planted in their designated field section. The planting is done during the rainy season. The field is cleared and holes half a yard in diameter and some 25 inches deep are dug. Prior to planting the seedling, half of the hole is filled up with organic materials. When the holes are ready, the seedlings are brought from the nursery to the field. Then the black polythene bag is carefully removed and the young coffee plant is placed inside the hole, and the other half is filled with soil. Then workers proceed to compact the soil around the seedling with their feet. The field is divided in sections, and each section has coffee plants of different ages. In some areas, plants are 1 year old. In others, they are 2 years old, or 3, and so on. The purpose is to allow the coffee plants to develop as best as possible, providing each age section the proper care to ensure a healthy yield. The coffee plant will not bear fruit until it is 3 years old, but the first trial production will be on a small scale. The yield will be excellent at 5 years old for the next 15 to 20 years. One of the most beautiful stages of coffee growing is its blooming. Plants in full bloom are an amazing sight, embellishing the landscape and filling it with its fresh scent. The white flowers announce the upcoming harvest. The first rainfalls in May bring the coffee plantation to its full bloom. Blossoms are white and medium size, with a nice scent that attracts insects and many bees which collect nectar from the flowers. This not only ensures a sustainable ecosystem, but also the pollination of other varieties of coffee present in the area. Flowers last for 3 days before they fall off the plant, leaving behind a fertilized ovule known as a coffee berry. It takes about 7 to 8 months for the coffee berry to ripen, during which time it will gradually change its color from green to red or yellow, depending of its kind. Picking is by far the activity requiring the most human resources, turning it into one of the most active and dynamic stages in this business. With December comes the time for picking. People from the surrounding villages come to work as pickers. The harvest is picked by hand. The workers selectively pick the ripe berries, leaving the green ones on the plant for a later picking. The picked berries are deposited inside baskets tied around the workers' waists. When the basket is full, the content is deposited inside sacks to allow for the basket to be filled up again. At 3 o'clock, the foreman in charge blows a kind of trumpet. This call indicates to the workers that it's time to stop picking and come out of the plantation to start the selection process. The pickers separate the ripe berries from the unripe ones that were cut by accident. After classifying the coffee and placing it in separate sacks, pickers transport it to the coffee processing facilities, called a beneficio, where it is weighed. The number of pounds picked is recorded with the picker's name. Pickers get paid at the end of the week. After workers have weighed the harvested coffee, they proceed to deposit it inside a tank. This tank, called siphon, is approximately 3 yards deep and filled up with water, which is constantly poured in through a pipe. The coffee berries sink, and the water pressure pushes them through a pipe that takes them up to a canal that carries the water and the beans to the depulper. The depulper is a machine with a rough surface cylinder that removes the skin and some of the pulp from the berries. The unripe berries that passed by accident are separated before they get to the cylinder. The pulp and skin are pushed out by a large mill to a tank located outside. Where the coffee beans, which come out of the depulper through a different opening called palace, continue to a gravity sieve where unwanted beans or empty beans float. These beans pass through a second, smaller depulper that repeats the process. Then they are deposited in small fermentation tanks and are classified as second quality beans. Simultaneously, the good beans sink through the sieve. Water pressure pushes it out through a pipe and sends it to a larger fermentation tank. These beans are classified as first quality coffee. Coffee beans spend 2 nights and 1 day in these tanks in a natural fermentation process, carefully monitored to ensure that they don't acquire undesirable sour flavors. After the fermentation process, the coffee is thoroughly washed with clean water. The coffee beans are forced out of the containers by water pressure and led out of the facilities through canals to the correteo, a zigzagged canal with a downward slant that ends in a draining container. The coffee passes through a second selection process where empty beans and first quality beans are separated. The beans that float are classified as second quality beans, and the ones that sink are called definite beans, that is, first quality beans. Once in the correteo, the fermented pulp is washed off the beans by running water and men stirring the water in the beans with wooden hose. When the beans are clean, they are ready to go through the drying process. In the drying process, which takes up to 12 days, the humidity level of the beans will be reduced to the desired 11 or 12%. When the washing is complete, the coffee, classified in partidas, is spread out in the sun on concrete patios. Every partida is turned over several times a day to ensure that all of the coffee beans dry evenly and to prevent mildew. In the afternoon, partidas are piled up separately and covered for the night. This prevents the night moisture spoiling the dryness from the daytime. Next morning, the coffee is spread out again, taking care not to mix the different partidas, since each one has its own dryness level according to the day it was washed. After the drying process, the parchment skin of the bean, or pergamino, is thoroughly dry and crumbly and easily removed. This indicates that partidas are ready to be collected from the patios and stored in the warehouse inside jute sacks. Coffee occasionally is sold and shipped in parchment or in pergamino, but often it is hulled to crunch off the parchment skins before it is shipped. Organic fertilizer is made from the coffee pulp and skin removed from the beans. Collected in special tanks, this waste is later transported by tractor to processing facilities. This organic fertilizer is made by placing the waste inside squared structures that contain earthworms, specifically red wiggler worms. The worms eat the pulp and skin and transform it into organic fertilizer called lombricompost, or worm fertilizer. This fertilizer has particular characteristics that contribute to the coffee plant's growth. When worms have eaten all the waste in one of the containers, they are transferred to another with new food so they can continue their work. Trimming the branches of the shade trees helps control the amount of shade in the coffee plantation. This task is performed in the springtime. To trim the shade trees, the farm workers climb the trees carrying ropes with them. Then they cut the young branches with the machete, leaving the old ones. This increases the quantity of direct sunlight and rain the coffee plant receives, which helps stimulate the production. The tree variety used to provide this shade is called gravilea. Gravilea is a fast-growing tree with its branches extending in a way that offer the coffee plants not only shade, but also protection from the December to February frost. Gravileas don't lose their leaves completely and don't compete with the coffee plants for nutrients or moisture in the ground because their roots go deeper. When the coffee plant is between 20 and 25 years old, constant monitoring is necessary to decide if a total or partial renewal is necessary. A partial renewal or pruning of the coffee tree allows it to produce new sprouts. Total renewal consists of pulling up the coffee plants from its roots. This is done when the coffee plant has decreased its production and has already gone through one or two prunings or partial renewals. Total renewal includes both coffee plants and shade trees and is done in sections. This ensures that the new generations of coffee plants grow equally and make it easier to provide them with the proper care according to their age. When plants and trees are pulled up, depending on the thickness of their trunks and branches, wood or firewood is made. Firewood is sold to people who use it as an energy source, and wood is stored in the warehouse so it can be used to repair bridges, to make boxes for seedlings, boxes for fertilizers, and more. Like all other processes mentioned before, roasting at Finca Colombia is done by hand. After the hulling process that removes the parchment skin or pergamino from the beans, the coffee is placed inside preheated, manually operated firewood ovens. The roasting cylinder has to be turned over constantly so that the beans will roast evenly. It takes about 40 minutes to obtain a medium dark roast. Once out of the roaster, the hot roasted coffee beans are placed on a special table and are constantly turned over so that they cool off evenly. Otherwise, the accumulated heat will continue to roast them. When cool, roasted coffee has to be let stand before it can be packed and placed at the store. Finca Colombia, through decades of tradition, is a family business where growing coffee is carried out with great passion and care. Everyone is dedicated to their work. People are the focal point of our coffee plantation. Family, workers, and helpers all working together in achieving one goal, the best cup of coffee in the world. This is a constant effort, from the seed to the cup. And this is truly the best cup of coffee from Antigua, Guatemala.